Hello and welcome back to Dukascopy TV. We've got a bit of a different interview today. We're looking at more of an update on three pairs and the correlation between them. We've got the euro dollar, the cable and gold bullion. With me in the studio is our very own Chief Operations Officer, Marc Spaelti. Marc, welcome to the studio.
Hi.
Well, let's just start by looking at the euro dollar. We've got here a graph here. What have you seen recently in relation to this graph?
Well, the most noticeable thing, obviously, is euro. A bit more than a month ago, we stood well above 130. We have been there for the whole year, basically, in a fairly tight range between 130 and 136. At the beginning of May, suddenly this changed. We were able to break the 130 level and fell all the way down to about 122 at the end of last week.
We were speaking earlier, though, just before the interview, you mentioned that there was talk of the euro going down, and on the next day, you said to me that suddenly it all just dropped. Talk me through that.
It was quite interesting. I attended the Euromoney FX conference where you have all the dealers of the big investment banks from London, and the main talk was exactly that the euro dollar had still been holding at 130. And every banker I spoke to, everybody was bearish euro. And in the end, they were right. And it's quite unique that when everybody says it goes one way, that it actually does go that way.
So we think there's obviously a bit of a break here, as you can see at the bottom there. We think, what do you think by the end of the year that we're going to obviously go pretty low? I mean, below 115?
Well, as you can see, we have this trend line starting above 130. It had a bit of a spike around the 128 level. But if you draw a trend line here, you can see that at the end of last week, this bearish trend down has been broken. We could imagine that we see a little bit of a recovery for the euro in the short term, meaning throughout June, maybe into July. A bounce back to that 128, maybe even 130 level. But further or later in the year, I believe that there is good chances that the euro dollar will end up at 115 or even at 110.
110
okay. In December. Yeah.
Okay, well let's move on to the cable. And what can we see here, Marc?
In cable, we can see that in beginning of the month of May, when the euro was already being sold off and on the fall, cable was still holding for some time, but eventually the move started in the second half of May and caught up with the euro, and that's why we see that the fall from about 162 down to 153 was very sharp.
Yes, you can see, very sharp actually.
Very sharp move, and it is probable that we're going to go and see a little bit of a recovery back to that 157.50 area. That would be about a third to 50% of retracement of the sharp fall. Okay,
moving then sort of quickly on to gold bullion. We've got, well, I mean, gold is sort of usually a safe haven, isn't it?
Yes, it is, and it's kind of stopped maybe a little bit, become a safe haven after it reached the level of 2000 a first time. There is definitely a correlation again to the dollar, that gold had the tendency to fall when the euro or cable was falling and to rise when the euro and cable were going up. Now, this has been the case at the beginning of May. Gold did fall from about 1650 to 1525. That is that low that we can see for the year. Since that 1525 level, just the last 10 days or so, gold has moved back up $100. So a lot, it has corrected a lot more than cable has or the euro dollar has. And we may actually see a break a bit of the correlation and a re-emergence of that safe haven status that gold has.
Thanks very much, Mark, for coming in. Some really interesting updates there, especially the correlation between the three pairs. That's all we've got time for, though, on Dukascopy TV. Stay with us, though. Hopefully tomorrow we're going to have some royalty in the studio. But until then, and from all of the Dukascopy TV team, goodbye.